So for today's episode, we're doing something a little bit different. I am going to actually be interviewing my wife, who is my partner in my own personal clothing brand called Palmr Style. As you know, I've been working with brands for 20 years, but my wife is new to this. And so I thought it'd be a cool interview to talk about somebody who knows a lot and somebody who is brand new and see where it goes. So everybody, this is Rebecca.
I'm here.
So we launched about a year ago with a soft launch, and it's been about 6 months till we did our full launch. So being brand new to the industry, not doing this before, what was it like stepping into this industry for the first time?
I guess I could kind of say it was a little scary, like a little daunting at first, because I really struggled with the amount of capital that goes into starting a clothing brand. And then, like, for example, buying a certain item and like we loving it, but then we put it out there and maybe it doesn't hit that much with our target audience. And it's like, well, now we have this like sitting on the shelf. And it's like, what do we do at that point? Like, and then moving forward, I always knew I was like hesitant with like how much should we be ordering of things. And I know that a little tick that we would get into would be like I would be more on the conservative side and be like, we should only order like 6 of these. And you're like, no, that's a nightmare. We can't just order 6 of them. And I'm like, but why? Like, what happens if they don't sell out and we buy a bunch and then they just sit on our shelves? Like, how do we handle that?
So that people understand, when you're doing everything in bulk, you need to be hitting certain numbers so you can have the right profit margin. When you're only ordering 6, there's a lot of work that goes into it. You need to be able to put the work into it with photography, designing the product, all that. It just doesn't make sense if you're doing 6. So you need to make sure you're doing it at a big enough number that it actually makes sense to do it. But because I've been doing it for so long, I know that there's just some designs that just don't click. You might love it and nobody else does. And I don't know why that is. It just is the case. Then you got a design, you're like, oh, I'll throw this out. It's okay. And people love it and it takes off. I've seen that over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, we even had that. We kind of had a contest between each other of like designing a shirt and which one would do the best. And of course, Nick's won. His design won, so that was fun.
So what was your biggest kind of fears and hesitation though going into this?
So I would say my biggest fear was kind of putting like our all into this. So kind of background on myself, I was in corporate America. Ever since I graduated college, I was in commercial real estate. So it's a very different industry that I jumped over to. But I always had a passion of fashion and always wanted to be kind of in that realm. And then funny story, when I first met Nick and realized what he did for a living, I'm like, oh my gosh, you like work in my dream industry. Like, I love what you're doing. And I think like we started very early on having conversations of starting a clothing brand. And it always sounded like, oh, that'd be so fun. But then when you start to get into like the nitty gritty of like all that goes into starting a clothing brand, my biggest fear was like, OMG, we're going to start this brand. We're going to put our all into it. I left my job, my career to put my all into this. And then it was going to be crickets. That was my biggest fear of like, what happens if like people don't relate to our brand? And I know that when we first started off, that was such a big fear for me that I tried to be like, okay, well, let us just be like this resort wear brand. Like, we're both from Florida. Like, let's be this fun, like bold prints. Let's have these like swimwear and all that. Let's be that resort brand for everyone. But then we're going to sprinkle in what our message is and our messages around type 1 diabetes. And I realized quickly on like we're trying to talk to everyone and we're really not talking to anybody, because I remember people coming to us and they're like, well, are you a type 1 diabetic brand? Are you a resort wear brand? Like, what are you exactly? And it's like, oh, like I want this to be clear to people. And of course, after you like really sit down and kind of like bring yourself like hindsight, it's like, no, like we are really trying to talk to everybody and nobody knows what we're talking about.
Yeah. Was there anything you didn't expect about launching a clothing brand that you now know?
Yeah, so I think one thing that I didn't expect, and I think I even told you, I'm like, we're not gonna get hate. Like, they're like, we're doing a good thing. It's about type 1 diabetes. Both our kids have type 1. Like, there's no way that we're gonna get online hate. And boy, was I in for a surprise and a rude awakening with that. And that's more on, like, the social media side and our messaging, but I think, like, when it comes to more of, like, producing a garment, it's just everything that goes into it. It's not just like, "Oh, you have a design, now it's ready to go," and it's just there's so much steps, there's so much picking the fabric, making sure you like the fabric, and I think both of us had the wanting to we want to love wearing our own garments, and we also want everyone else buying our garments to feel the same way. Well, that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of, like, trial and error, like, picking out different garments, trying them out, like, giving them out to our family to try out, putting them through the wash. How are they durable? Like, there's just so much more that goes into it besides just, like, a pretty design, which in my mind was just, "Oh, that's it. Once you have a pretty design, then the rest is so easy."
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more that goes into it when it comes to like production and thinking through every aspect of it. And especially with all of our cut and sew, I don't think you really understood what actually goes into it. And building out the tech packs, figuring out the sizing, every single little detail, and how to bring it all together.
Yeah, when you first used a tech pack, I'm like, "Excuse me? What is that? What is that exactly? Come again? I don't understand what you're speaking."
So, what is your favorite part so far about having a clothing brand?
So I would say my first favorite part, or my first thing that would be my favorite thing, is being able to do this with you, my husband, but then also what we are doing in our messaging. We came about this, like I mentioned before, both our kids have type 1 diabetes, but I am their stepmom. So I came into this world not knowing anything about type 1 diabetes. I didn't have anyone close to me at the time that had type 1. And really kind of starting that community around, hey, this is a chronic illness that you can feel super alone being a caregiver in it and like being immersed in it every day. And, in our case, we have two kids with it. So we're like the caregivers of them. And to be honest, it requires 24-hour care. So, really, just building that community and being able to build a platform where we can have these uncomfortable conversations and being honest with ourselves. Like, our relationship at the very beginning looked so different. Like, our relationship still looks different. Our marriage looks different because we are a blended family. And it's just having those conversations that I don't think are being really had, and just building that platform and bringing people in of like, hey, we get you, like we're going through this and you're not alone. So I would definitely say that would be like my favorite thing so far with doing this. But then also, it's just getting those messages, and then I really have you to thank for this, but, when, we're in the process of creating more garments that include pockets for the diabetics to be able to feed their equipment through, and just getting the messages of women especially being like, "Hey, I've had type 1 diabetes for over 20 years, and I have always been cutting holes and little slits in my garments to be able to feed my equipment through." And it's just really being able to create something through our garments that is such a need and a want for so many out there in our community.
Yeah. And going off of that, how have you approached social media and brand building?
Yeah, so I think with our social media, I really took the stance of we're putting ourselves out there, so we're gonna be real. Like, not everything is gonna be a perfect Instagram reel. There's gonna be days that both kids went either really low or really high throughout the night, and we're literally running off of 2 hours of sleep. So I think with our social media, the first thing I really wanted it to be is to feel organic, and if for it to feel real too. And also just realizing with like sometimes getting negative comments of like, you're not going to be able to make everyone happy. That's not the point of this. Like, the point is for that one type 1 diabetic to see an ad of ours or to see a reel of ours and be like, wow, this brand gets me. And they're creating garments that are for me. But then also, it goes so much further of like a caregivers, like who we are. Like, being able to attract the caregivers and then feel like, wow, I'm not the only one going through this. And even taking that even a step further of, having someone that knows of somebody that has type 1 diabetes and wanting to support the cause. So I really think it's just that conversation starter that we're doing. And I really feel with our social media, that's what we really wanted to start is that conversation and of what goes into type 1 diabetes. What is type 1 diabetes? And everything that we go through as two caregivers with it.
So what was it like seeing your very first sample? Did anything surprise you about it?
Yeah, I think what surprised me was how many, like, critiques that I had, and I feel like I mean, I knew I was a perfectionist, but, like, really, like, going into that step of having my first sample, like, wow, am I a perfectionist? And before us putting, like, our stamp of approval on it, like, there's gonna be a lot of changes that we
Mhm.
want, and then just, like, simple things that I thought were, like, common sense, like, you have to literally put down every detail of what you want your garment to be like. Like, nothing is common sense. Like, no one can read your mind. If it lives here, it has to be out in writing for, your partner, your custom partner to be able to know what it is exactly what you want and bring that to life. So I really think it was that, like, I'm such a perfectionist, one, I have a little bit of OCD, and really of like, you really need to be so detailed in exactly what you want your garment to be.
Please listen to everything she just said. There's so much truth to that. You need to be as detailed as possible with your production partner because they cannot read your mind at the end of the day. And that's the only way it's going to come out how you want it. With that being said, is there anything that you wish somebody would have told you before starting your own business?
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, like I mentioned before, I quit my corporate job to do this full time, to put my all into it. And it's just, I was used to being in an industry that I was rewarded kind of like right away, like a right away reward, if that's money wise or vocal or anything, however it may be, you weren't really getting an immediate response when you kind of launch your brand and like launch items in your brand. And I know that for myself, I was like, we launched it, we did our soft launch, and I'm like waiting and I'm like ready for Shopify to like make that little great sound that we all our brand owners love. And that wasn't happening. And it's like, then you start to immediately feel like you're a failure, like you shouldn't be doing this, like, no one's going to relate to your brand. And then like there's so much negative talk that you like start to like play within yourself, and it's like you have to stay so true to who you are and why you started this in the first place. And I know for us, we didn't start this brand to make millions of dollars. Will that be amazing if we get there to one day? Of course, that's amazing for anyone. But that's not what is fueling us. And what really is fueling us from day one is building that community and having that strong sense of like family and community for the type 1 diabetes worlds out there.
Man, there's so much truth to that. And I wish everyone understood that who is starting a brand because for most people, it is about making money. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to make money. You should make money when you start a brand, but there needs to be a deeper meaning about why you're doing this because, as you said, it's not something that happens overnight. It takes time, and you need to have a deeper meaning to fuel you to get you where you want to go long term. Is there any advice that you would give other people, especially women who may be interested in starting a clothing brand?
I would just say, kind of like honing in on what I've talked about before, take a chance on yourself. Like, I know that even before I met you and we even started talking about having this clothing brand, there was other business ideas that I had in mind, but I would kind of like put feelers out there. And like the first negative comment I got about it, it would shut down my idea completely. And I'm like, this would be a failure. I'm not going to do it. And it really like held me back. And I quickly realized, and now I see it, hindsight's 2020, but I see it now that, I took this risk. I left the industry I was in for years that I was making good money in. And I actually took a chance in myself. And it's actually realizing like I'm actually so much stronger than I give myself credit for. And not everyone is going to love your idea or even agree with what you're doing or anything, but it's really not about everyone else. It's about yourself and what you're bringing to your own table and how you are feeding your soul and what is fueling you to get out of bed every day. And I think that that's huge. And I think a lot of women, at least I can speak for myself, we fall victim of being, oh, we're just a failure. We can't do this on our own. Like, no one's going to believe in us. And that negative talk. And I just really wish I, learned this a lot sooner in life, but I'm grateful that I have learned that now.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing. It's amazing to see how far you've come in understanding. And again, anybody can kind of do this, but so much of the first year that you're starting a clothing brand is going to really be about learning and making mistakes and failing and how to get better. And it's amazing to see what you've learned in that short amount of time.
Well, thanks for having me. And it's always been helpful having a handy dandy husband like you.
Yes. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoy this. Thank you so much.